Welcome into It's Just the Show. I'm your host, Jay Stone, and with me as always is Corey Champney.
Hey.
We're recording live tonight from Habersham Broadcasting Company here in beautiful Cornelia, Georgia. We got a list of things to go over tonight. We're going to cover the guys that didn't make it, the Hall of Fame stiffs, people that should be in the Hall of Fame and have not made the ballot or have not made the final vote.
That's right, but before we get that, Jay, I have something that's bothering me.
What's on your mind?
I need to put out a PSA.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I was something was brought to my attention about parents in a totally different state thinking that cups for their little leaguers, cups, jockstraps, are inappropriate and there's no need for them.
Get out of town.
Yeah. And if I'm playing baseball, and I played baseball, but I have a story to tell you why we need to have jockstraps, why you need to protect the Netherlands down there. The reason is, all right, I was a catcher, and one day I'm running late. I woke up late on Saturday morning for my Little League game. So, I got one leg in, the other leg in. I'm running out the door. Forget my jockstrap. I made a choice. I said, I'm not doing it today. That thing's uncomfortable, and you know what? I didn't think anything of it. I'm a catcher. I'm the one guy on the field other than the pitcher that probably needs to wear it, but I digress. So I get there, the pitcher, he's out there, he throws his warm-ups, he cracks his neck, rotates his shoulders, he's ready to go. First pitch, right down the middle, the hitter just stares at it. And I was, being the catcher that I am, I'm the one that always talks smack. And I told the guy, man, you let that one go? Man, if I was hitting, that one would still be in the air. That had a stewardess on it and everything, man. Oh, I'm sorry, flight attendant on it and everything. I can't believe you just looked at it. You just stared at it. So I get back down to the crouch and, put down the one finger and tell the guy, come on, bring it. So the pitcher, he releases the ball and then I hear the ding. And the next thing I know is I'm in pain. Well, what had happened was he fouled it off. And, for those of you know that the home plate is shaped like a diamond, and it has a little triangle at the end aimed towards the catcher and the umpire. Well, the ball bounces off that triangle and bounces around the Netherlands like a pinball, going ding, 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 and then it tilt, hit the tilt. And, my danglers, they were hurting.
Ooh.
Yeah, that ball came back and hit me right in the jingles, man. It did not feel good. I was down. I was out. It was like a cartoon. I was seeing the little birds go around my head. Worst pain I have ever been in my life. Like, ladies, you don't understand. I know you all give birth, mad respect, but you've never had the Netherlands invaded like that.
Decisions were made and lessons were learned.
Exactly. And I woke up the next morning and I had a bruise on my inner thigh, and my twigs and berries were the size of Christmas ornaments. They were Christmas ornaments.
And that right there, folks, is why you wear protective gear.
Exactly.
And you cover the most important things. So you could look it up on Google at the moment. If we go to Google, we will find that the cup was invented before the helmet because we know as men what needs to be protected and what's important.
My PSA is this. Parents, it's not provocative. It's not an evil thing. It's not meant to be dirty or filthy. It's meant to protect the danglers. If you want to be grandparents one day, let your kids wear the jock with the little cup inserted in it to protect the danglers. In fact, I'm going to start a movement. Hashtag protect the danglers.
The first testicular guard, or known as the cup, was used in hockey as early as 1874. The first helmet was used in 1974, only 100 years later.
Yeah. And so I'm going to start the movement right now. Hashtag protect the danglers. I want to see it on hats. I want to see it on shirts. But we need to make sure that there's awareness for this.
Somebody get a hold of Danger Nunley and let him know that we need a hoodie that says hashtag protect the danglers.
Oh, yeah. And we'll put our show, emblem on there too. But
absolutely,
eventually maybe we'll get a we'll get a merch stand going with a hashtag protect the danglers. But I just think it's so dumb that these parents. I mean, I think people get bored of things not to complain about, and you're gonna put your kids' danglers on the line like that. It's ridiculous.
It is. That's preposterous to think about.
But I digress. Let's talk some Hall of Fame, and let's talk about a bunch of guys who did protect their danglers while they were playing, but
Amen.
they can't get into the Hall of Fame for whatever reason. It's a crime, I tell you, a crime. Do you want to start? Well, the most obvious one, I think, for everybody is a man by the name of Pete Rose.
Pete Rose.
And for those of you who don't know, Pete Rose is probably the greatest baseball player to never get into the Hall of Fame. And the reason for that was when he was a manager of the Reds, he supposedly gambled on his own team.
When you type into Google, why is Pete Rose, the first like 3 things that come up are not in the Hall of Fame or variations of it, just for the record.
So you want to hear some of his stats? The guy has the most hits in a career, passing Ty Cobb. He has 4,256 hits.
Wow.
He has 746 career doubles, 135 triples, 160 home runs, 1,314 RBIs, 198 stolen bases, and a career batting average of .303.
That's impressive.
The guy played from 1963 to 1986, and he was the player manager. He was 45 when he stopped playing, and he played with the Reds and the Phillies. He was part of that, Big Red Machine 1970s juggernaut team.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's just a travesty that this guy, who is the all-time career hits leader, is not in the Hall of Fame. But the story goes that when he was manager of the Reds, he was caught gambling on his team, which is a no-no to gamble on your own team. And being that fact that he was a manager, he could control games, whether they win or lose. And so that was looked upon. And then every commissioner since then has said, no, no, no. This guy's not going to get into the Hall of Fame till he dies. I firmly believe that.
I do too. I don't think he'll get to see the day. I mean, he was quoted saying, "I'm so proud of what I've accomplished as a baseball player. I'm the hit king, and it's my dream to be considered for the Hall of Fame." So, I mean, he knows he owned it. Everybody in baseball knows that he owned the diamond, and it won't matter in his lifetime. You broke the golden rule. There's only so many rules in sports that you don't. There's no question that they're against the rules. And whether it's betting for or against your team, you don't bet on ball when you're playing.
You can bet on a different sport. If you're a baseball player, bet on football. If you're a football player, bet on baseball.
Yeah, I mean, there's that early 90s commercial, a Jordan self-help or hotline commercial with Michael Jordan talking about get some help. Stop it.
Yeah.
If you got a gambling problem, call somebody. Get some help.
Just don't call Jordan.
Yeah. He may have had a gambling problem.
Yeah, who knows? We don't want to insinuate anything.
But 1989, it was said that Pete Rose will be permanently ineligible for the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, and that's a shame for what he did on the diamond to never be eligible. It may take an entire generation after he passes. Some things in the game may change, kind of like Reggie Bush getting his Heisman back. Things change over time. Rules change. People start being able to get money in college. Maybe one day you can bet on your team. Who knows? Pete Rose would be a first ballot Hall of Famer if he ever got on a ballot.
Yeah, and it's so weird because there's only been really, I think, from what I understand, 3 players that are ineligible for the Hall of Fame. Pete Rose, a guy who was just playing, I can't say this name, Tucapita Marcano. He was banned in 2024 for betting on his own team's games. And Roberto Alomar was banned in 2021 for sexual misconduct towards a female Toronto Blue Jays staffer.
That's awful.
They're the only living players ineligible. So, yeah, he can't even be voted in by the Veterans Committee because he's considered ineligible. The only one that can overturn that is a commissioner. But you know what the Cincinnati Reds did?
No.
They inducted him into their Hall of Fame.
Of course they did. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah. I mean, thumb your nose at the establishment and be like, you know what? Forget you guys.
Everybody loves a outlaw rebel story, underdog.
And it's a shame Pete Rose, and there's a handful of other guys that'll probably never go into the Hall of Fame just because of accusations.
Yeah.
Barry Bonds,
Yep.
Mark McGwire,
Steroids.
Sammy Sosa,
Steroids.
Alex Rodriguez,
Mm-hmm.
Rafael Palmeiro, and Roger Clemens.
Performance-enhancing drugs in a time where it was a hot topic. People thought, oh, they won't catch me. It's like robbing a bank when cameras started coming out. Oh, that bank doesn't have cameras. I'm going to hit that one.
Yeah.
No, man. It was a hot topic. Everybody in baseball wanted to see pure athletes play the game. They didn't want to see the game tarnished. It was one of the few great American creations that had influenced the rest of the world. Baseball is American culture. Although maybe its ground rules were derived from other sports, sure, everything grows and evolves from something else. But baseball that's pure American heritage, and people don't want to see it tarnished, and I understand that.
Yeah, it's for me. We grew up watching these guys hit the ball. It was awesome. Because this is what you needed coming off the strike of '94. You needed this home run chase, these guys mashing the ball, out of the park like crazy. For me, steroids, does it make you hit the ball a little further? Yeah. But you still got to hit the ball.
Mm-hmm.
It's the hardest thing to do in sports. I mean, we mentioned it in the first episode, Jordan couldn't do it.
Dion talked about it on a podcast on Club Shay Shay.
Yeah.
He asked him, you played all that ball. What was the hardest thing you ever had to do on a sports field? He said, man, hitting that ball is the hardest thing I've ever done.
Your hand-eye coordination has to be spot on, because if you're a tad second late, a tad second early, it's the difference between a home run and a foul ball, or a pop-up in a home run. It's a mere hairline of a fraction of a second. So I think it's unfair that these guys don't go in. And I think within time, I'm thinking the next 10, 15 years, you might see some of these guys go in.
Guys that weren't first ballot Hall of Famers.
Like Bonds. I think Bonds might actually eventually go in. I think McGwire and Sosa, since they've done and said a lot of the same right things, will go in. And I think A-Rod's eventually going to go in too, because he's doing the right things. He's doing a lot of the broadcasting. He's getting his face out there. He's eventually going to go in.
It's true.
A couple of names that surprised me. Jeff Bagwell's not in the Hall of Fame yet.
Really?
Yeah.
Here, the big one for me, and shout out to my Uncle Kevin, big one for me is Dale Murphy.
Oh, yeah.
From 1976 to 1989, he was, from 1978 to 1989, he was pretty much played every single game, and he was the Braves' first baseman. And he was on a lot of bad teams, but right there, he got traded right before the Braves went into their dynasty mode of the 90s.
To the Phillies.
And, to a rival team, and that's a rough way to go out. But, I mean, the man averaged 162 not average, but he played all 162 games and was an all-star in 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87. Like, are you kidding me? How does that guy not make it into the Hall of Fame?
Well, here, let me give the stats, and people – leave comments, because I want your opinion on this. If this guy's stats hold up. So a 265 career batting average, which is above average. They say about 250 is a average, on average for a hitter. 398 home runs. He was too shy of 400. There's guys in the Hall of Fame with a lot less. 1,266 career RBIs. 2,111 hits. 350 doubles. 39 triples. 161 stolen bases. So you tell me.
I don't get it. Because in those years I just listed, from 82 to 87, these are his home run numbers. Because everybody loves a home run.
Oh, yeah, they're ridiculous.
36, 36, 36, 37. Had a down year with 29, but he comes back the next year and hits 44 with 105 RBIs.
Yeah.
In 83, had 121 RBIs.
So he was a 7-time All-Star, like you said, in 1980, and then from 82 through 87. He was a 2-time NL MVP in 82 and 83, so back-to-back.
Mm-hmm.
He was a 5-time Gold Glove Award winner. He won the Silver Slugger 4 times. He won the Roberto Clemente Award in 1988. He was a home run leader, National League home run leader in 84 and 85. He was the NL National League RBI leader in 82 and 83, and the Braves retired as number 3. So, and he's in the Braves Hall of Fame, of course. So my opinion is, I think the reason why he's overshadowed and overlooked is he played in a down era for baseball, the 80s, which the end of the 80s when things started blowing up, with the Oakland A's and the Bash Brothers and things like that. And he played on a lot of bad teams. I mean, he played with the Braves from 76 to 1990. 1990 was the last year that they were a last-place team. He only went to the playoffs once, and I think that was in 82. That was the team that started the season out by winning 12 straight games.
Mm-hmm.
And then he played with the Phillies from 90 to 92, and he ended his career with the Rockies, the expansion Rockies, their first year in 1993. But the fact is that when those Braves wear those white uniforms from the 80s with the blue A on it,
yes,
that's Dale Murphy's uniform.
Yeah, that's a dedication to Dale Murphy. There's not anyone else that played in that era. Love to hear about it in the comments if you think someone else during that era was more influential to Atlanta Braves culture than Dale Murphy. But you got to think this guy played for Atlanta for 15 years. He played 1,926 games. He had 8,000 plate appearances. You don't think that some people saw that guy play, Atlanta Braves fans? I mean, they walked him 1,500 times. He had a career batting average in Atlanta of 268. He hit 371 of his 398 home runs in Atlanta. He did everything in his career there, and he made a big impact. In my opinion, he carried the fan base through the worst decade of Atlanta Braves baseball.
He did, and not only that, I think that's the whole reason why he's not in the Hall of Fame, because he played for last-place teams. And they look past that 80s Braves franchise, and they say, oh, he wasn't good enough to elevate his team. Well, when you have a bunch of no-namers, Johnny-come-latelys playing, and you're the only hitter, they're going to pitch around you.
Exactly.
They're not going to – you're going to see the best pitches that a pitcher has because, they know that the guy behind you is an easy out. They're going to put you on base. So I think it has a lot to do with bad teams that he played on.
And I'm getting my information from baseballreference.com. Curious to see if these stats are wrong, because it's saying that Dale Murphy was an all-star 6 years in a row. He won 2 MVPs.
No, it's correct. Baseball Reference is spot on.
5 Golden Gloves. And 4 Silver Slugger awards. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
In 80, 82, 83, he won MVP.
Yeah, he won MVP back-to-back seasons.
And then 84 and 85, he was top 10 voting. And all 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, no, 80, 82, 83, 84, you're talking All-Star, MVP, Golden Glove, Silver Slugger. What else did he need to do? So play second base and center field?
So let's see, the 82, 83 teams. The 82 team was 89 and 73, and they finished first in their division, but they lost the NLCS 3 games to none. To the St. Louis Cardinals. They were in the NL West back then, too.
Mercy.
So here's who he played with in 82, just to get and this is the good team, okay? So your catcher was Bruce Benedict.
Who?
Your first baseman was Chris Chambliss. Your second baseman was Glenn Hubbard. Shortstop was Rafael Ramirez. Now, third base was Bob Horner, who hit 5 home runs in a game one time, but he was a 30 home run hitter. Rufino Linares, Dale Murphy in center, Claudel Washington in right. They had the guys on the bench were Jerry Royster, Brett Butler, Terry Harper, Bob Watson. But in their pitching staff was 43-year-old Phil Niekro was your number 1 starter. He was a 17-game winner. You have Bob Walk. He probably walked some guys. Rick Mahler, Pascal Perez, Ken Daly. The closer was Gene Garber, Rick Camp, Steve Bedrosian, Larry McWilliams, and Al Hraboski.
So throughout Dale Murphy's career in Atlanta, he played outfielder, first baseman, and catcher.
Yep.
And he hit from the right side of the plate. He threw right-handed. He was 6'4", 210 pounds. Whew. Drafted by the Atlanta Braves in the first round. So they knew he had value. drafted right out of high school, Woodrow Wilson High School in Portland, Oregon. And he had a wonderful career in Atlanta. And I need somebody to call me, text me, find me on social media, tell me why Dale Murphy is not in the Hall of Fame. Why is he not a first ballot Hall of Famer? What did he do wrong? He played with, I don't want to be disrespectful, but a bunch of those names sound like the guys I used to work with.
Well, listen,
they don't sound like pro ball players.
Listen to this '88 team. Their record was 54-106.
Ooh,
which we're past the All-Star break, and the Braves now have like 59 wins or 58 wins
already.
Right now. The catcher was Ozzie Virgil. First baseman was Gerald Perry. The second baseman was a young Ron Gant. Shortstop was Andres Thomas. Ken Oberkfell was the third baseman. Deion James was the left fielder. Terry Blocker was the center fielder, and Dale Murphy was the right fielder.
See, changed positions again.
39-year-old Ken Griffey Sr. was on that team. Lonnie Smith. Let's see. Who were the starters? You had, a young 22-year-old Tom Glavine. Who was 7-17 that year.
Oof.
His rookie year. Rick Mahler, Pete Smith, who was 7-15, Zane Smith, Kevin Kaufman, and a 21-year-old John Smoltz, who was 2-7.
Ooh.
Bruce Sutter was your closer. So
John Smoltz, the GOAT.
Yeah, exactly. And that is a horrible team. But talent, there was young talent. They hadn't figured it out yet. But
who was the manager? Already it was
so in
not Bobby yet, right?
No. In '88, it was Chuck Tanner. He went 12-27, and then they fired him and they hired Russ Nixon. Yeah, but Bobby Cox.
Sorry, Chuck, I'm laughing at you.
Bobby Cox was the general manager, though. He was the one that drafted all those young players, Glavine, Smoltz, all. Russ Nixon was the manager in '89, but that '82 team that went to the playoffs, you know who the manager of that team was?
No.
Joe Torre.
Really?
Yeah. Joe Torre was a former Brave. He played with the Braves in the 60s.
Would you look at that?
Yeah, that's just...
So, shout out to Uncle Kevin for the topic. Appreciate it.
So, I have one more in baseball, and then we'll move on to football and some basketball, because some of those names in basketball are ridiculous. Just like Dale Murphy, this guy played in the same era, the 80s. He played from 82 to 95. And I'm talking about Don Mattingly, the guy who played first base for the Yankees. Not a big Yankees fan, but this guy is just as deserving. He wasn't a power hitter, but man, there's 2 years in 1984 and 1986 where he hit over 200 hits for the year. He had 207 in 84, and he had 238 in 86.
Goodness.
Yeah, it's crazy. He had 222 career home runs, 2,153 hits, 442 doubles, 20 triples, 14 stolen bases. He was a first baseman. What do you want?
Yeah, I mean, he's not Mr. Speedy.
He had 307 career batting average, and he played his whole career with the Yankees, which, is unheard of.
That's impressive.
That's the last guy I could think of that did that was Chipper Jones, that played their whole career with with one team.
Mm-hmm.
He is a 6-time All-Star. He's a 9-time Gold Glover, 3-time Silver Slugger. He has a batting title. He was Major League Player of the Year. He was also Manager of the Year because he managed some teams. But this guy, for whatever reason, and I think because they had some bad Yankees teams that he played on in the 80s as well, is the reason why he's not in.
I still think it's crazy. That 86 year, 742 plate appearances, 238 hits, and 53 of them were doubles.
It's crazy. Like the guy got on base, the guy would hit, and the guy drove in runs. Or he was the guy getting on base for you to drive him in.
Mm-hmm. He scored 4 more runs than he drove in.
Yeah, I've heard Yankees fans talk about this guy and saying, why is he not in there? But when I do my research, it's like, yeah, this guy does deserve it. He was American League MVP in 1985. He won a Gold Glove from 85 to 89, and then again in 91 and 94. He won Silver Slugger from 85 to 87. He was the 1984 American League batting champion. He was the American League RBI leader in 1985, Manager of the Year in 2020, the COVID year. His number 23 is retired by the New York Yankees, and he also has a monument in their Monument Park. He was manager of the Dodgers from 2011 to 15, and the Marlins 2016 to 22.
I think some of these committee members that vote on the ballots for the Hall of Fame need to do a little bit more research into the effect these players had on their hometowns. Not necessarily their hometowns, but their teams that they played the longest for or had the biggest impact on, the most influence on, because some of these guys have statues and you don't have them in the Hall of Fame.
Exactly. And
they're the embodiment of fame.
And I understand they played on some bad and horrible teams, but so did Hank Aaron.
Yeah.
And if he didn't hit 715 home runs, he probably wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame.
Facts.
If he only hit 515 home runs, he probably still wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
It's because he played on some bad teams. He did win a World Series in the 50s,
right?
But he played on some bad teams in the 60s and 70s.
That is a fact.
So you need to look past to what they did. It makes their numbers even more impressive that they did this on bad teams.
Mm-hmm.
Teams that didn't have other awesome players to go along with.
Could you imagine playing 162 games and having almost 750 at-bats? That's ridiculous.
I have one at bat and I'm hurting.
I know that's right.
I mean, it's incredible. And I think to your point, it's these other teams retire these players, and it's like, okay. And what I don't like about the Hall of Fame is you let the sports writers induct people. That's part of it. It's not just the guys who used to play the game. Let's take the sports writers out of it. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, they don't deserve to decide who goes into a professional sports Hall of Fame. They don't swing the bat. They don't throw the ball. They don't catch touchdowns. They don't run the ball. It needs to be a former player. If you played baseball at all, you get a ballot, and you get to vote for who you think deserves to go in out of that class. And then you have the guys that are no longer on the ballot, but you can still vote for them, like the Veterans Committee thing. I love the Veterans Committee because they're putting in guys that didn't get to make it in the first time. And I think you're only on there for 5 years, and then you're off.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, you're in limbo. You're at the mercy of the Veterans Committee. I think that it should be all players all the time and nobody else.
I agree. I mean, I almost agree. I think that there should be a small percentage of columnists that are chosen by columnists. So, like, if there's 50 members, I think 40 of them should be inactive players. Yes. Retired or otherwise, but inactive players. If they're the managing, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
They still have a grasp on the game, but they're not playing the game anymore. They're seeing it from a different perspective. You don't want current ball players voting for their hero.
No.
And stuff like that. And that's just my line of thinking. But I think that say that there's only room on this committee for about 10. Say there's 50 members, I think 40 of them should be retired professional ball players, and I think 10 of them should be some type of media. And those 10 should be voted on by peer vote.
Yes.
Those Stephen A. Smiths of the world, and those guys should be voting for each other to represent because they think that they have the best take on that sport.
Let me run this by you. I had this idea not too long ago. You have your veterans, you have your writers, and then what they could do is like what they do with the All-Star game. Every team submits a player, and they get to vote. Or they give you the list of Hall of Famers, and you put it to the fans to vote. And then you have a fan count, you have a writers count, and you have a veterans count.
Like an election.
Yeah, exactly. But it brings the fans into the game. They get to decide. Also, they get a say.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so you could go on like MLB.com and register and pay some money or whatever because, MLB is going to want their cut.
Of course.
Or, whatever to vote. And I'd pay money to go vote for a Hall of Fame. Are you kidding me?
Absolutely.
I mean, I'd get Dale Murphy in there.
You darn
go on a letter writing campaign or,
And that's another thing that bothers me. Look at the geographical distance that the fan base of the Atlanta Braves covers.
Oh,
so
yeah.
From Atlanta north, you don't get another ball club until you get to St. Louis, and that's really northwest. If you're going straight north, you're
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati
is the team, believe it or not, this blew me away. Cincinnati is the team that is geographically, miles-wise, closest to the Braves than any other.
Yeah.
They're even further. They're closer to us than the Tampa Bay Rays.
Right.
That's crazy.
So we cover fan base throughout Louisiana, all the Carolinas, Tennessee, Northern Florida, Kentucky, the Virginias.
Yep.
Like, and when you start getting into Eastern Virginia and then towards D.C., you'll start getting into Nats country.
Yeah, let me ask you a question. When you got home from school, there was a team that was always on in the afternoon, and it was on WGN, right?
Absolutely.
It was a cable network that broadcasted everywhere. The Braves were on TBS.
Yep.
So you see Braves ads everywhere, all over the country, because from the 70s all the way up to the mid 2000s, 2010, I think, or whenever.
Maybe a little earlier, but close.
Through that first run, at least all the way up to 2005 when they won their last consecutive pennant, they were on TBS.
Yep.
That's why they were America's team.
Yep.
Because anywhere in America, you could turn on and you could watch TBS, or you could turn on and watch WGN. You could watch the Cubs. You could watch the White Sox. You could watch the Braves. And I think the fact that at that time, Dale Murphy was on TBS, you could watch him any time that there was a Braves game on. And he's still overlooked.
Yep. I don't understand how.
He was one of the most popular players in the 80s. Now, another guy who played in that era, but he played on a good Phillies team, Mike Schmidt, he's in. He's in the Hall of Fame.
Who?
Mike Schmidt. He was a famous third baseman for the Phillies, but he had like 500-something career home runs, but he played in that same era. Ryan Sandberg was a second baseman for the Cubs. He played in that era. He's in the Hall of Fame. So I just feel that because he played on some really, really horrible teams, and a lot of people probably watch those Braves games as, oh, there's nothing else on. It's a rainy day, and this is the 80s, so we don't really have video games other than Atari and the regular Nintendo where we can just shoot ducks and little plumber bumps and breaks bricks. We get bored of that. Let's turn on. Oh, look, here's a baseball game in Atlanta. Huh. Oh, they're horrible. Oh, but they're playing my team. Huh. Or they're playing the Cardinals and they're going to get stomped. Huh. All right, let's watch it because it's something that's on. It's background noise.
Right.
You know, a lot of people say that about a podcast. Oh, I'll listen. It's background noise. Okay.
Well, we appreciate it.
Yeah. My voice can be background noise in your life anytime.
Yeah, you.
Well, I mean, so let's move on from Major League Baseball to the good old National Football League. Some of these names kind of surprised me a little bit, and some of them I was like, wow, can't believe it. You know, have you ever heard of Eric Allen?
Who?
He was a defensive back.
Yeah.
And he played for quite a few guys, or quite a few teams, actually. He was really, really popular. He's not in the Hall of Fame for whatever reason, and I don't know exactly why. He was like the top defensive back in football. He played with the Eagles from 88 to 94, the Saints from 95 to 97, and the Raiders from 98 to 2001. He had 787 tackles, 54 interceptions, and that's 826 interception yards, 40 pass deflections, 5 forced fumbles, 7 fumble recoveries, 3 sacks, and 9 defensive touchdowns.
Wow.
The guy was a beast. But you look at the time he played with the Eagles, 88 to 94, not great teams.
No.
Those Saints that he played with from 95 to 97, not great teams.
Awful.
Those Raiders, that Raiders team that he played with in 98 to 2001, I think one of those teams.
Is that Rich Gannon? Is that Rich?
That's the Rich Gannon. So, yeah, he may have went to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But he also played in that New England snow game.
Yeah, the tuck rule.
The tuck rule game, which, it still wasn't incomplete. Or wait a minute, it was an incomplete pass. It wasn't a fumble. His arm was going forward.
Mm-hmm.
It was going. He was doing the tomahawk chop, Jay.
He was fumble.
He was chopping.
Raiders should have won that Super Bowl.
He was chopping that broccoli. He was letting it fly, but
awful call.
He got hit. That was back when you could hit Tom Brady.
Yeah, the Rich Gannon Super Bowl was 2003.
Okay, so he missed out, but he still played on some. He still played on some playoff teams, but he's also a 2-time second-team All-Pro. He was a first-team All-Pro in '89, 6-time Pro Bowler. He was on the NFL All-Rookie team in 88. He was part of the Philadelphia Eagles' 75th anniversary team. So out of 75 years of a franchise, you make that team as one of their greatest players of all time. And he's in the Philly